I'm Zero. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be walking through a digital drawing I made recently. The first step to any drawing is the idea, the inspiration. My idea for this drawing started out with Chappell Roan, pinup style on a rocket, to showcase the supernova part of her song Red Wine Supernova. I used Google or Pinterest to find my reference images. I found a couple great reference images on Pinterest. Of course, I also saved a few of Chappell herself, mostly to reference her hair and her makeup. When I actually start the drawing, I use a pencil brush to sketch it out and get the general size and shape in. I then use a different color, aka this lime green, to start refining details over the sketch. I use different layers for this process, but eventually I merge them together when I start doing the real line work. I start sketching in her face, again with a different color so I can see everything clearly. You can see I'm taking inspiration from her Kink is Karma video. This particular screenshot is the one I was referencing. I originally wanted her outfit and her makeup to be like her Tiny Desk concert, so you can see me start sketching that shape. As I started adding clothes to her body, I realized the proportions were less than ideal. So I decided to utilize one of my favorite resources, which is an app on the iPad called Pose Tool 3D Pro. It's been a while since I've got it, but checking Google it looks like it's about $7. This app is great because you can take basically a mannequin of a person and pose it however you want. I then drew directly on top of this. I'm not confident in my human anatomy abilities, so I felt comfortable using this resource. At this point, I wasn't sure what outfit she would be wearing. I originally wanted her Tiny Desk concert outfit, but as I drew the skirt in, I realized I didn't like it, and I wasn't really sure how I'd be able to translate these floral-looking folds onto this drawing. I tried a pleated skirt, almost like cheerleader-like. I didn't like that. Then I tried these biker shorts. I also did not like that. It was really going to depend on what pieces I actually had the skill to draw. I landed on one of my favorite outfits she's ever worn, which was her late night performance of Red Wine Supernova. She had this beautifully intricate corset top, hair accessories with ribbons and beads, and these fun poofy things on her sides that added a really cool silhouette. I knew as I looked at these reference photos I would not be able to copy them exactly. After I got my base down, I start going in and creating my color palette. For me, this is one of the most important parts of the drawing. I want everything to mend together, but still contrast enough. I started adding some details on her corset top. This is where you can see me draw in what my vision for the end result would look like, mostly to reassure myself. Drawings go through a lot of ugly phases. I also needed to know that my color palette was still going to work. I started cleaning up all the color work, trying to make sure everything was inside of those lines. I started refining the details to the corset top, but these oval things that she had going on her stomach area were giving me a lot of trouble. I wasn't sure how to translate those, so I ended up changing them. I had a friend suggest adding beads, which I thought was a great idea because something about it just felt kind of empty. I made a line going down the center of her body since she was sitting at kind of a weird angle. I wanted to make sure the beads were sitting right. I started with a choker, so changing it from this like thick pearl beaded necklace thing that she had going on, and I made it a thinner choker style. Kind of a collar almost with the metal hardware in the front that would have the beads hanging down from it. Her body coloring was looking pretty flat, so I used the same color I did for the blush and added it all over her body, especially on her elbows and her knees. Then I started doing her eyeshadow. I started with a deep purple airbrush on a low opacity. She had some sort of blue-green shimmer going on, so I added dots of teal and green and white to try and give that glitter shimmery effect on her eyelid. Then I went through and erased all of that messy blush from outside the lines. I went through and I changed the outline to the gloves. Back to the beads, this was definitely the most tedious part of this drawing. I have the base as a pinky salmon color. I did all those circles individually, and then I went through and I added a small crescent of a burgundy color as like those dark shadows on the beads, and then I went back through with an airbrush pen with a bright vibrant pink halfway on the burgundy, halfway on the light pink to blend those together. I added this shadow to the corset. I ended up not using it. I didn't really like the way the cool tone looked on this outfit, Now, here's where I knew I wanted to add ribbon ruffles. So I grabbed an artist reference photo, which was like a sketch of someone else drawing ruffles, very simplified, and I taught myself how to draw it in the moment. As you can see, it was a lot of trial and error, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. Here is when I started shading them in, using a mix of airbrush and a pen on low opacity, various shades, a lot of gray, pinks, reds, and purples. As I'm coloring in her outfit, I'm also thinking of what material everything is made of and how to best translate that. Like I said, I wanted these pink ruffled bits to look like ribbon. I realized the pillows looked a little empty, so I thought I could bring the beads down as well and lay them on top of those. So again, I'm doing those pink circles, the crescent of the burgundy, and an airbrush on top of a darker, more vibrant pink to blend the two. I also realized I didn't see enough contrast with them, so I added a black outline to the sides. I was lucky enough to have thought ahead, and I had my beads and my outfit on 2 different layers, so I was able to go between those layers and add that black outline. So now I start adding shading to the gloves. You can see me try a couple different ways, but I land on my personal favorite way to shade, which is a solid shape without any blending between the 2 colors. My style is very much inspired by 2000s cartoons, especially like What's New Scooby-Doo. I love the simplicity of it, and the way that those shadows have looked has always been my favorite. I then add shading to the pillows. I wanted these to look like a satiny, silky, soft, plush pillow, basically. So you'll see me start to draw with this dark pinkish purple. That's mostly just so I can see what I'm doing and how the shapes look, and then I lower the opacity to a shade that I'm happy with. Here is when I tried adding some stitches or some beaded details onto the hearts on her corset top, but it didn't really fit and it made it look really busy. The pillows looked a little empty still, so I added a few heart charms to the beads. I then add shading to her body. You may notice that the feet haven't been touched yet, and it's because I'm not great at drawing feet or shoes, so I was really putting this off. Even here with the reference image of this boot, I was struggling. I put her at a really weird angle, which I wanted, but also it comes with its challenges. I opted to hide one of her legs behind the rocket, kind of like she was straddling it. I don't have to worry about 2 feet and like the way that they're angled. And then her legs seem too empty, like there's all this stuff going on everywhere else. I wanted to add some fishnets, and I had this vision of white fishnets with like a ruffled top. So I found a really good reference image that had both of those aspects to it, and I sketched it in. It really helped that I already taught myself how to do ruffles for this part, and you'll see once I make the lines black, I didn't like how the ruffles were looking on the left side. There were just too many of them, and it made it look really crowded. Couldn't really see what was going on, so I lessened those. And then I shaded them in. I added the blush back to her knees, and I colored in her boot as well. Her boot looked really empty, and I didn't want it fading too much into the rocket. I wanted there to be a lot of contrast, so I added beads as well. Next, I wanted her to have some fun earrings inspired by the Space Girl vibes I had for the whole drawing, so I drew a Saturn earring. I ended up changing which ear it was on, and then I added more funky, chunky wooden beads on the other ear. After she's mostly completed, I started working on other aspects of the drawing. I add some fun waves to the background, and then I start on the rocket. I found a couple good reference photos and just kept going until I liked it. I knew I wanted the main window to be heart-shaped and for it to have fun, funky 50s space vibe. I added shading to the rocket and its windows, and like I said, more detail, so I added some bolts to the windows as well. I knew I wanted the flame to be a fun and funky shape, so I did that and I airbrushed the colors so it had this nice gradient to it. You're gonna see the flame and the rocket colors change a little bit. The rocket looked too smooth, so I added these ribbed parts. I'm not really sure how to describe them, but they match the thing I did on the wing, and you can kind of see it in this reference image. That's the vibe I was going for. The gap between her legs and the rocket was bugging me, so I added this metal plate onto it along with the bolts. I realized she still needed hair accessories, so I tried a couple different things. I thought about maybe just having random stars in it, but then I decided to take inspiration from the same outfit I was referencing, where she had these fun, ribbony, lacy things going on. Then I added even more beads so it would be cohesive with her outfit. I shaded in the stars, the beads, the bows, and the little ribbon pieces. Then I added highlights all over. Her cheeks have little hearts as the highlights. After that, it was time for the words. You can see me line stuff up and try to start drawing it. However, I ended up finding a free font online that I was able to use. It's important to check that the font you've picked is for commercial use if you're looking to sell things made with it. Then I used the liquify tool in Procreate to make it all squiggly to match the flow of the background. I went through and outlined all the letters, shaded them, and added highlights. I adjusted the color of the words a little bit. Then I added eyelashes, little stars to the background. Then I added bright white highlights to the letters and adjusted the background color slightly. And voila! This drawing in total took me about 19 hours over the course of a week. I thought it was interesting the way it shifted so much, and when I started, I had no idea how it was going to turn out. Overall, I'm super happy with it. If you have any requests or questions about specific techniques I used in this drawing, please leave a comment. Or if you don't have a question, tell me your favorite Chappell Roan song. Like, subscribe, all those things. I'm not sure how often or anything I'll be uploading, but I'd love to make art-related content. Stream the rise and fall of a Midwest princess. Okay, bye!